create page transition. Nobody knows whose page transition it is. We're going to have other assignments in the class where nobody's going to know whose assignments they are. So what we want to do is slap a bumper on the front of each one of them, okay? So this assignment that we just showed how to render it out, you'll make another rendering of it with your title on top of it, okay? So this assignment, we're going to make just a little basic bumper that we can create. Now, I want to go through several different iterations so we can create several different bumpers. That way, we can basically have different ones that we could use throughout the animations, all right? So I'm going to make a brand new composition. Every project starts off with a brand new comp. I also want to P drive 2200. Make a brand new folder here and call this title bumper. Yep. That way I have something that, we're starting off with a new project, so we want to make sure that we're starting off with new folders. And then pull the cheat sheet up. Okay, here's my external organization, audio, artwork, blah, blah, blah. So I will put that over there, put this over here, and I will make my new folders. Okay, now your reference folder, remember, that's stuff that you find online. If you see a cool bumper and you're like, oh, I'd love to add something like that into mine, download the video, drop it into your reference. That way you have some way that you can always look back at it and maybe grab a technique from. Okay. Now we'll go back to After Effects. I make a new composition. I'll just call this Blip 001. Okay. So we're not doing the title right now. What we're going to do is understand blips, and then we'll get into the actual title part. Okay. So I'll leave everything else. 30 frames, 960, 540. 8 seconds is plenty of time. Hit OK. Okay, so what we just did on the page transitions was we took an entire solid and we wiped it basically across the board. That's what we did, right? Or we scaled it or whatever. So with this, what we're going to do is we're going to take an asset and then make a little animation of that asset and then animate it in a circular format or whatever. So if I go here to my rectangle tool or any of these, remember I can create shape layers. So the pen tool, come on, the pen tool also allows me to create shapes, which is awesome. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click and then hold down Shift and then click straight up. Now this creates a shape layer. You can't see anything here because my stroke is at 0, so I need to fatten that up a little bit. I don't need a fill on this, so I'm going to click on the fill and turn that off. And then you'll see that I get a shape layer. Let me go and adjust this, okay? So if I click and drag on that point with the pen tool, I can adjust how big it is. If I open up these triangles here, I can control other stuff that's part of that. So if I just move this up, maybe I can arrange this a little bit better so you guys can see it better. Right there. All right, so maybe we can see that better. Okay, cool. Right now these top pieces and bottom pieces are square, so I can round these off too. Okay, so now these are rounded as opposed to just being like you just saw, square pieces. You could also do dashes, not that we need to for this specific one, but I could add dashes into here and then change the spacing. So that's something kind of neat you could do. I don't need dashes, but I could. Okay, so what I want to do for this one is I want to basically animate this little line just kind of shooting out basically like a laser beam. So if I go to my add options here, remember how we use that trim path to create the circle loops, okay? So I'm going to do the same thing with this because all the trim path does is we have this path here, and imagine that we have a start point on one side, and all it does is basically follow that path. Okay. Now just to go maybe a little bit easier to kind of see what's happening here. There we go. Ooh, gorgeous. So I'm going to add a trim path to this just so you can kind of see like on a bigger picture of what it's doing. So I started right here and I went like this and I kind of sketched that out with the pen tool. So if I go to the start percentage and I click and drag, you can see how it's moving that start point basically along that path. So now it's gone, right? So I'm basically saying the start point and the end point, when they're both at 100, are on top of each other. If I go to the end point and I crank this back, it's basically where the end point is now all the way back at the beginning. And you'll see they do it as a percentage. So 0 is going to be at one side, 100 is going to be at the other. If they're both at 100 or they're both at 0, you'll see nothing. Now what's neat about this is that you could also take this like that. Let's say, that's cool. And then you could use the offset. And the offset basically will do this, where it's like continuously, right, basically like writing my name or my signature back on here over and over again. And you could use these in combination with each other to do even cooler stuff. Okay, and that's what we're going to be doing on this one. I'm going to go to the trim path. I'm going to take my end point and bring it back to 0. And I'm just going to set some keyframes. So I'm going to zoom in a smidge. I'm going to set some keyframes here. I'll set all 3 of them actually. Okay. I'm going to come up a little bit. In this one, we want this to happen pretty quick. So we're not going to have like a second between each one. So this is like 6 frames. So I'm going to take the end point and pull it up. And then I'm going to take maybe the offset up a little bit. Oops. Sorry, not the offset, the start point up a little bit too. There we go. Okay, so now we have this. Nothing happens, right? So what's happening is the start and the end are both moving at the exact same speed. So if they're both the same value, we won't see anything. So I'm going to take the start and just give it a little offset. Okay, so I just offset the start from it. So what should happen is we get that. Okay, we get this nice little like blip where this thing like comes out and then is like closing in. Okay, that's all we want. Cool. All right, now I don't need the offset one. I thought I was gonna use it, but I didn't. Now I'm gonna do my easy ease. I'm gonna go to my graph editor, send this back to a value graph. Oops, sorry, speed graph. And then just adjust these frames. Okay, so it's gonna go really fast right at the beginning. There you go, that's cool. I'm happy with that. All right, so now what I wanna do is I wanna take this shape and I want this to happen in more than one spot, okay? So remember last time we showed the repeaters. I'm going to show the repeater again. Okay, so I just add a repeater to this. I want under the transform here, okay, there's this transform for the repeater, which is basically like in Illustrator, it's like step and repeat. Like do this and then move it over this far, do this and then move it over that far. So if I open this up, it's basically repositioning each one 100 in the X direction. So basically I have 3 next to each other. That looks stupid. So let's just get rid of that. So I have 3 on top of each other. And then I can go to the rotate and maybe set it like this and maybe set it like that. Okay. So now if we watch it, we get like this little sunburst. Okay. Now the neat thing about this is that, let me just loop it, is that we can use this for a whole bunch of different kinds of things because it's just this little simple animation. We could even change the opacity on some of these. This one's not going to work very good because of how they're laid out. Yeah, it's not too bad. Okay. Even the end opacity, maybe we can change. I think I have a double one here, so I'm going to go with 17 copies. There we go. So it does give us some variation. You'll also notice that my pivot is kind of off a little bit. Okay. If I send this back to, let's say, 3 copies, you'll see that I'm not quite lined up with the center. Well, the cool thing about this being a shape layer is that's no big deal. All I have to do is just go back to the pen tool. There you go. Grab my shape and then just scoot it over until it's pretty centered. Okay. Now, because this is copied, we can have as many copies as we want. We can also go to our rotate and rotate it less. So I can go to, let's say, 10 degrees. And that's 10 degrees for each one. So now it's just kind of shooting out of one side. Or maybe it's 30 degrees for each one. Okay. And I could also offset this, come on, to move it around to where I need to. And this offset is neat too, because then you could even animate this offset. So I can go here and then come up to there, maybe offset it. I have to actually drag to there. Yeah, not super awesome, but you get the idea. Okay, so very cool that we can do this kind of stuff. Now, this is one type of animation that we could do for something like this. And this is one way to do it, which is using the repeater. The problem with the repeater, though, is that we can't change the time on each one. Like, it'd be kind of nice if I could have one of them come off and then randomly the other sides come off, okay? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this layer so I have a copy of it and we can reference back if we need to. And I'll just rename it. So I'm going to say repeater shape. And then on this one, I'm going to get rid of the repeater. So I'm just go to the repeater itself and just delete it. And so now I have just this one shape that goes like that. So what I want to do is something very similar to what we did with like the Brady Bunch thing. I'm going to create basically a little animation of the one and then animate it going around. So if I just took this and duplicated it and then just rotated it, you'll see how I can manually adjust this. Okay, so I go to rotate, drop that in, go to duplicate it, rotate it, duplicate it, rotate it, like this. And then I can manually go through and kind of offset these. Okay, so now we get some kind of neat effects. The problem with this though is that what happens if I want to edit the shape of it? I want to edit the thickness of each one. I want to do something basically like universally to all of them without having to go through and click on this one and then change its width, or click on that one and change its color, or click on one and change the timing of it. Okay, so right now the way they're set up is I would have to go through each one and do that. So what I'm going to do is when we did the Brady Bunch one, what we did was we clicked on this and we drug it down to the new comp, right? That's what we did, okay? And what that does, it takes that composition and puts it into another composition. So I don't want to do that because I have two things in here. What I am going to do though is I'm going to right click on this layer and I'm going to say pre-compose. Now this is a neat thing that it'll do where it actually takes this layer right here and it puts it in its own composition automatically. So we don't have to worry about adding it to another one and then dragging it. It'll just automatically do it. So I'm going to say laser shoot 001. And I'll say move everything into that and then hit OK. Okay. So now if we look at this, we have the exact same animation. I think I want to flip these two. It'll be easier to see if I flip this maybe. Okay. So we have the same exact animation going on. But now if I take this and duplicate it and rotate it that far, and I duplicate it and rotate it that far, and I duplicate it and rotate it that far, and duplicate it and rotate it that far, and I go through and kind of offset these a little bit. Okay, so now we have this kind of neat little blip. And then I say, okay, well now that's like way too thick. I don't like the color. I want to maybe change some of the stuff. All I have to do is double click on any one of these and it opens up that composition for me. Okay, so now I can click on this and now I can change the width of it. So I'll go to the width and maybe make this like 10. That's good. Okay, maybe I'll change the color of this to maybe like I'm going to change it to a regular gray. And then I'm going to change my background color in my other one to a darker gray so you can see it better. There we go. All right, so now that changed all of them. Okay, when I pre-composed it, it basically makes a little template, and then I can do whatever I want with it, and it updates all the other ones. Now, the reason I made this gray is because I want to add an adjustment layer to it. So I add an adjustment layer, it goes above all these ones. Then I can go to my color correction, do my hue and saturation, and then I can just say colorize, and now I can pick whatever color I want. So I want these to be kind of like a blue. I'm just going to slide this over until I get to the blue. There we go. I'm going to take my saturation up. I'm going to take the lightness up. There we go. So now we just have like this kind of like hint of blue in there. Okay. Now that's one part of this that we're doing. We're just taking, again, that animation of that clip and then adjusting it. Now, again, that's better than this kind of repeater one. They both have their purpose. The repeater is nice because very quickly I can just say I want 12 copies. Now I have 12 copies. Very quickly I can just adjust the rotation and I'll get different rotations. Okay, but this one's nice because I have more control over it. All right, so that's one of the things that I want you to rebuild. Okay, now I'm gonna build another one, and then this one is a different kind of blip. So I'm gonna add a new. I'm going to add an ellipse. I'm going to double click. There's my ellipse. And then I'm just going to go through and resize it so that it is proportionate. So yeah, 300 should be good. Okay. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to scale this up. Okay. Now in this case, I don't want the stroke on here. So I'm going to get rid of the stroke. And I'm going to take the fill and maybe make it, I like blue, so I'll just do this brighter kind of blue. All right. So I'm going to animate this thing scaling. So I go to my scale, set it to 0, it's gone. I go up a little bit, set it to 100. There it is. Okay, so now I easy ease. I go to my graph editor. Take a look at that animation. Nope. Way too slow. Go the other way. Yep, that's better. I think I just need to pull this keyframe over more. There we go. Okay. Cool. So what I'm going to do now is I want this thing here to basically like grow, but then also disappear. So like as it's growing, I want it to disappear. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to offset this top one. Okay. Now, just so you can see the difference, I'm going to give it a random color like red. Okay. When you're clicking the shape layers, all we have to do is just click up here at the fill, and then we have those colors. So now this obviously looks stupid. I have this blue one and I have a red one. What I want is transparency. I want to basically cut a hole right inside here. So way down here at the bottom, it might be hard to see, but there's a toggle switches and modes. I'm going to click on that. And this is going to bring up this track matting. Okay. So I'm going to rename this one to be transparency. And I'm going to call this one, it looks like a bubble when it's done, so I'm going to call it bubble. Okay. Or buble. I'm going to take the bubble one, I'm going to go to the track mat area and say, I want you to use the alpha from the transparency up top. Okay, so now when I did that, you'll see that it actually did the opposite. Like we lost size. Okay, put it back on. When I click on this, you'll see that my blue layer actually gets a bit smaller. So what's happening is it's saying, here's where that red circle is. That's the only spot I want that blue circle to exist in. Okay, we want it to actually be the opposite. So if I go here and say alpha inverted, it'll do the opposite of it, basically cutting a hole right where that red is. So now if we watch this, we get that nice little like blip, okay? So it comes out and does that. Pretty awesome. Now here's what's cool about that is I could then take both of these shapes and duplicate them and then offset both of them and then duplicate them and then offset both of those. And then I get something like that. Maybe a little bit too much. Maybe just 2 is needed. 3 might be a little overkill. There we go. Perfect. Okay. So now very quickly we're able to get these kind of really neat looking animations just by using these transparencies. Now one thing we're going to see here is there's a tiny bit of an outline. And if I were to zoom in, that's definitely still there. Because these two layers are basically like right on top of each other, their edges don't really know what to do. So they kind of show this like pixelated version. So all I have to do is go to my top transparency node and then just give the stroke just a little bit of weight. Like that much. All right, because I have to go to that one too and give that one a little bit of weight. There we go. I think I gave them too much weight and now they're just cutting it out. Here. Oh yeah, 75 is way too much. I just need like 2 pixels. Okay. So now this is another way that we can create what's called a blip or a little transition. Now these two things we will use when we're starting to do our title sequences. They're nice little filler pieces that allow us just to add a little bit more to our animations. So if a ball were just to hit a wall, kind of okay, it works. But to have a ball hit the wall and then have this like little action happen, it adds a little bit more to it. And then if we were to add sound to that also, holy cow, this is like actually an animation. I need to rename this to my bubble comp. There we go. And then just to show you real quick, I can also take my blip. Yep. I just dropped my bubble comp in here just so you can see it. So you can see how these two things kind of work together. Right? So the kind of like the lasers now are kind of shooting out with this like circle thing. I could also kind of offset my lasers. Wrong one. There you go. So I just offset the lasers a little bit. More. There we go. Or I could offset the bubble. It's subtle, but it's there. Okay. So there's lots of stuff that we can do for these types of little animations that we can add to it. So if you get a chance over the weekend, do these, a couple of these, and then start looking at other ones online just to see, get some ideas of different things you want to add or different things you can create. When we come back on Monday, we'll start continuing more of these, plus adding stuff into our actual title bumper assignment. Okay? Cool.